Hello ji guys, assalamu alaikum. So I welcome you all in my channel CS by SS. So today we will be talking about all of the important information about programming, right? So we will be starting from basic concepts like data types, if-else conditions, selection statements, case statement, and then we will be moving towards very complex concepts like loops, data handling, and file handling, and a lot of other standardized functions as well. Right? So please stick to watch this video completely if you want to learn the basics to advanced level of programming. So let's get started. Value. Next, declaration of variable. It's so important to choose the correct data type for a given situation to ensure accuracy and efficiency in the program. And here I have used four things to just to tell you how you can declare a data type, right? So for in pseudocode, we use word declare. Declare is a keyword. Keyword is always having a special meaning in a computer programming language. Then name of the variable, and this arrow. After this arrow, we will write down the value, right? And syntax is basically the rules we have to follow when we are doing something in that language. In Python, we will just write down the variable name, equal, and value. In Java, we will write down the data type and variable name. And in VB, we will use dim as a keyword, variable name as is also a keyword, and then data type. Like I have declared dim x as integer. So it means x is a variable of integer data type. So I hope these examples is also clear. So in this way, we can declare our variable using different data types. Okay, so in exams, they will be asked about something similar to this question. They will be some data will be given to you, and they will be requiring the data type, and you will be mentioning the data type and the description. Like I have given three. Here is 83 data is given. Some sort of Gmail is given here, and the true is here, right? So 83 is a number, so you should know that number is always comes in integer, and this is a combination of characters, so it means it can be a string. And this is true, so you know that there is only one data type which can hold either positive and negative, I mean either true or false. So this is boolean data. I hope this is clear. This way you have to mention data type and data type description. Variables and constants. So it must be it's very important that you should know the most basic concepts of programming. Both those concepts are basically variables and constants. Variables and constants are used to store a single item of data in a program. This can be accessed through the identifier. Identifier means the name of that variable. Variables can be changed during a program execution while constant remain the same. It's clearly, I hope you have learned these terms in maths as well, because variable will be changed value during any time, but constant will remain same. Variables are declared using a data type, a name and a value. Value will be optional. And constants are declared using the const keyword, a name and a value. In constant, the value is not optional, but in variable, value is optional. In all programming language, variables names should follow certain rules, such as starting with a letter, not containing space, can contain letters, numbers, apostrophe, this a slash or a dollar sign, not using reserved word. I have already explained reserved word. Reserved words are basically words which is having some special meanings, right? What are those special meanings and what are those words we will be learning in this chapter. So for right now, you just need to know that reserved words are if, while, for, and a lot of others as well. So you cannot use reserved words as a variable or constant name. Declaration of variable and constant, as we have already learned that in pseudocode, you will be here we are declaring a variable called score with a value of 10. Score is a variable name, and this arrow is representing that 10 is the value. So this is the syntax of declaring something in declaring a variable in pseudocode. And how we can declare a constant in pseudocode? We will use const words. Pi means pi is the variable name, and then arrow, and then the value of that variable. In Python, we used score equals to 10 to declare a variable, and pi equals to 3.14, whatever the value is used to declare a const. Usually, Python cannot differentiate between variable and constant. You have to maintain it by yourself. Okay, so again, there is one more question given to you, and the names, the variable name and age are used to store data in a program. Name stores the username, age stores the user's age. Write a pseudocode statement to declare the variables name and age. Please take a moment and try to solve this question, because a description is given. You just have to find out how to declare a variables. We have already learned how to declare a variable in our previous slide. So try to answer this question by yourself. Okay, so the next point is input and output. Most important concept, that how we are going to take input from the user and how we are going to display something on our screen. So output refers to the process of displaying or saving the results of a program to the user. In pseudocode, we will use output as a keyword or reserve word. And in the double quotes, we will be mentioning the string we want to display on the screen. And if we want to display any variable name, then we are going to use variable name exactly like this, right? And in Python, we will use print keyword, or it's a function. It will display something. Whatever we will display inside these double quotes is going to display that thing on our screen, right? So input refers to the process of providing data or information to a program. User input is data or information entered by the user during program execution. In pseudocode, how we are going to take input from the user? First, we will display something output, enter your name, and then we will use input keyword, and then we will be mentioning the variable name. In this variable, we will be storing the information whatever the user will enter. right? And in Python, we will use name equals to input, enter your name. So whatever the user will enter through this input function, it will be stored in this name variable. If we want to display this name on our screen, so we can use pseudocode this and Python code this. Sequence. Sequence is a concept that involves executing instructions in a particular order. It means we are going to execute the instruction in a same order which is given to us. It is used in a programming language to perform tasks in a step-by-step manner. Sequence is a fundamental concept in computer science and is used in many programming languages, right? In pseudocode, we will like there's a piece of pseudocode given. Like first we have used print statement, then 1, 2, 3, x equals to 5, y equals to 10, z equals to x plus y, two declaration of variable and one execution of something is given, and then print statement to print something on our screen. In Python, we will write print hello world x equals to 5, y equals to 10, z equals to x plus y, and print z. So sequence means we are going to execute the statement in the same order given to us. So the output of this instruction will be hello world and 15. So the next process is selection. What is selection? Selection is a programming concept that allows you to execute different sets of instruction based on certain conditions. You will be specifying some condition, and then on the basis of those conditions, you will be executing the statements. There are two main types of selection statement: if statement and case statement. If selection. If selection allows you to execute a set of instruction if a condition is true. They have the following syntax. If condition, then is also a keyword. Everything you will be looking in the pseudocode in caps. These are all keywords, right? As you can see, this is also a keyword. This is also a keyword, and if is also a keyword, right? So if condition, then instruction, and if. In pseudocode, here we have mentioned x equals to 5. If x is greater than 0, then we are going to execute this print statement. But is this greater than 5? Yes, it's greater than 5. So it's greater than 0. So we output of this variable will be x is positive. That's it. Same Python code. So in this video, we will be actually programming session. We will be focusing on more in the pseudocode, but for your reference and for your understanding, I have given the Python code as well. If you want to know more about Python code and you want me to explain the Python code, then I will explain it. You can tell me in the comment section box. I will explain. So the next selection is if-else selection statement. It is used to execute one set of statement if a condition is true and a different set of statement if the condition is false. This is the syntax of our if-else structure, as you can see. If condition, then instruction. If this condition is not true, then else part will be executed. Else, instruction, and if. We will be taking the previous example. X equals to 5. If x is greater than 0, then we will print x is positive, else print x is negative. But currently, we will be displaying x is positive because x is greater than 0. If else, if selection. If else, if selections are used to test multiple conditions and execute different statements for each condition. So the syntax of your if else condition is given over here. Here we will be specifying if condition, then instruction. If this condition is not true, then we will go in else part, but in else part again we have if condition, right? Again if condition, then instruction. If this instruction is still not true, Then we can find out another else statement for an execution, right? And let's say these first two conditions are not true, then we will be following this else part. So again, let's take this example, x equals to 5. If x is greater than 0, then print x is positive number. Else if x is less than 0, so if we will be specifying if again with else, right? So then we have to specify the condition as well. Okay, so then print x is negative, else print x is 0. So always we will write down else part with the if condition. If we have specified once else part, so it will always end with else part without any if condition. So there is another quest, write an algorithm using pseudocode that input three numbers and outputs the largest one of the three numbers. It's very simple. You just have to take three numbers and you have to find out which one is the largest number. Take a moment and try to solve this question. As you can see, input A, B, C, and then we have specified if A is greater than B and A is greater than C, then print A. Else if B is greater than C, then print B, else print C. And I made a mistake over here. There I need to specify and if as well. You can correct it by yourself. Next, selection statement is the case statement. Case statements allow you to execute different set of instruction based on the value of a variable. They have the following syntax, like case is a keyword, of is also a keyword, and here you will be specifying variable name, and inside the variable name there will be some value, and here we will be specifying value 1, value 2, and so on, and with this double quotes you will be specifying the instruction. Once you will specify all the values, then you will write down otherwise. Otherwise means if none of the value will be matched, then this instruction will be executed. And then end case is the keyword also. Okay, so there is another example given in pseudocode and in Python as well. So case of number, a number will be given to us, any number, and depending upon the number, we will be printing something. If the number is 1, then we will print Monday. If the number is true, then we will display Tuesday, and so on. If the number is not between 1 to 7, then we will display invalid number. Okay, so there is an exam tip, because most of the time, usually students are facing problem when they are trying to solve the programming question. So you make sure to include all necessary components in the selection statement. The condition, the statements to execute when the condition is true, and any optional statement to execute when the condition is false. Use proper indentation to make the code easier to read and understand. Be careful with the syntax of the programming language being used, as it may differ slightly between languages. Make sure to test the selection statement with various input values to ensure that it works as expected. Next concept is iteration. Iteration is basically the process of repeating a set of instructions until a specific condition is met. It is an important programming concept and is used to automate repetitive tasks. There are three main components of iteration. There are types of iteration. You can say count control loop, precondition loop, and postcondition loop. Usually we call loops. These iterations are called loops in computer science. So there are three types of loops: count control loop, precondition loop, and postcondition. First, we have count control loop. In count control loop is used when the number of iteration is known beforehand. It's also known as definite loop. It uses a counter variable that is going to be incremented or decremented after each iteration. The loop continues until the counter reaches a specific value. So, for an example, I have given see, this is a counter, count equals to 1, and I have used for keyword, and a condition is given. I is less than equals to 10. Until or unless I is less than equals to 10, then I am going to display count. Sorry. And next I is also the syntax of this loop. So initially this loop will actually display counting from 1 till 10. A precondition loop. A precondition loop is used when the number of iteration is not known beforehand and is dependent on a condition being true, right? So in the precondition loop, we are not sure about the number of iteration, and we are dependent on a condition. So until or unless that condition will be true, we will be executing the loop. It is known as indefinite loop, and the loop will continue to execute while the condition is true and will stop once the condition becomes false. Like I have given an input temperature. While temperature is greater than 37, do output patient has a fever, and again take input. And again, while after taking the input, it's again going back to the while loop, and it's going to check temperature. If that temperature is greater than say 37, then again it will display out patient has a fever, and again it will take input until or unless that input is less than 37. When we will be getting the input as a less than 37, then this loop will end through this statement, and our control will uh, come out from the while statement. So precondition loop, a lot of time this precondition loop is called while loop. Okay. Postcondition loop. A postcondition loop is used when the output must execute at least once. Means at least once we are going to execute the loop, even if the condition is false from the start. The condition is checked at the end of the loop. So see, this loop is sometimes called repeat loop. We are going to say repeat input guess. And again, first we will enter in this loop, then we will take input and the input guess. And if that guess is equals to 42, then we will come out of that loop. Until or unless we will receive the input guess 42, we will not come out from the loop. Okay, but in Python, post condition loop doesn't exist in Python. Okay, and we will be using precondition and count control loop to manage this post condition. So then there is a very important concept about totaling. We have already talked about totaling, counting and counter and a lot of other functions in our chapter number 7. But here we will be talking about how to execute these concepts in programming. So totaling involves adding up values, often in a loop. Total variables can be initialized to 0 and then updated within a loop, such as, let's say total equals to 0 initially, then I have used for loop from 1 till 10, and then I am taking input, and all of those numbers I am adding in the total again and again until I will reach the limit 10, and at the end I will be displaying out. So in this way we can find out the total of. Counting involves keeping track of the number of times a particular event occurs. Account variables can be initialized to 0 and then updated within a loop. See, like count equals to 0, and for I is 1 to 10 input, and if number is greater than 5, then will be incrementing count, and if number is not greater than 5, then we are just moving into the next iteration. What will be the next iteration? We will got to know when the user will enter something through as an input. right? Let's say user have entered 4 times greater than value 5, right? So at the end, our count will contain 4 value because user has entered 4 times greater than value from the 5. Write an algorithm using pseudocode that input 20 numbers, output how many of these numbers are greater than 50. It's very simple. First, you have to take 20 numbers, and definitely you will be using loop to take input from the user. And then you have to find out how many of these numbers are greater than 50. So it's very simple. You just have to use one for loop, and you have to specify one if condition, and you have to use count concept. As you can see, for loop from 1 to 20 input numbers, and here I am going to compare numbers. If number is greater than 50, then total equals to total plus 1. Next X, and at the end I will be displaying print total. Yeah, you have to output how many of these numbers are greater than 50. You can tell the counter as well if you will update counter over here. String handling. So the strings are a sequence of characters such as letter, numbers, and symbols. They are used to represent text in a computer program. String handling refers to the various operations that can be performed on string. The first concept is length. The length of a string is the number of characters it contains. In a Python, we will use len function. Len function is used to find the length of a string, and in Java we will use length function method used to find the length of a string, and in VB we will be using len function again but with the capital L. Substring. A substring is a portion of a string. In Python, the substring can be obtained using the slicing operator like this, and in the Java the substring method is used to obtain a substring. Substring means to get a string from the string, and in VB the mid method is used to obtain a substring. Upper is also a method which will convert all the characters of a string uppercase. In Python we will be using upper method to convert a string to uppercase, and in Java we will be using uppercase. In VB we will be using uCase function to convert a string to uppercase. The lower method converts all strings of a string, all characters of a string to lowercase. It's exactly opposite of the uppercase. So in Python we will be using lower, in Java we will be using lowercase, and in VB we will be using lcase function used to convert a string to a lowercase. As you can see, I have given an example of all of those functions. So there is a string variable data type with phrase variable. In this phrase we have some string, and that string is save my exams, right? So you will be mentioning length. In this length variable, this length function will a variable, same variable has been passed to this function, and this function will return the number of length. So what is the length of this phrase? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So the length of this string is 13. So in my length variable, it's containing 30. Substring will give you the substring from the phrase, starting from the value till 2 digits, right? 2 uppercase will convert it into uppercase letter, and 2 lowercase will convert to lowercase letter. The function length finds the length of a string, and the function substring xyz finds a substring of x starting at a position y and z characters long. The first character in x is in position 1, Write a pseudocode statement to store the string. Say my exams in X. Find the length of a string and output it. Extract the words exams from the string and output it. It's pretty simple. If you have any question, do let me know in the comment section box. Try to solve it by yourself. I hope it's clear to you. Okay, so the next point is arithmetic, logical, and Boolean operators. Operators are most important thing for programming, and without the best use of operators, you cannot do your programming efficient. Arithmetic operators. So there are altogether 6 to 7 operators: addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, exponent, modulus sign, integer division. Addition will add two values together. Subtraction will subtract one value from another, as we do in mathematics. Division divide one value by another. Multiplication multiplies two values together. Exponentiation raises a number to a power. Modulo, sometimes called mode will return the remainder of a division operation. Integer division, that's sometimes called div, will returns the whole number of a division operator. Okay, as I have mentioned, in this way we can use these operators. A plus B will give return the value to C. A plus B is 5 plus 3, 8. 8 will stored in C. A is 5 minus 3, 2. 2 will be stored in D. 5 multiplied by 3 is 15. 15 will be stored in E. A divided by B, which will give you 1.5 something. So here I'll be getting 1.5 or whatever is it. G A mod B. So modulus will return the remainder, right? So 3 1, it will give you 2. A exponent B, right? So 5 power 3 will be 5 125 almost. A div B will give you the solid value, whole value, that is going to be 1. Logical operators, the first one is equals to, less than, or equals to, greater than, or equals to, not equals to. Equal to will return true if two values are equal. Less than returns true if the first value is less than the second value. Less than or equals to return true if the first value is less than or either equals to the second value. Greater than returns true if the first value is greater than the second value. Greater than or equals to return true if the first value is greater than or equals to the second value. First value means the value which is on the left side. I mean this side. Okay. Not equals to returns true if two values are not equal. As it's explained, A equals to B, false. A is less than B, false. A is less than equals to B, again false, because A is 5 and B is 3. A is greater than B. A is greater than B is yes, it's greater. A is greater than equals to B. Yeah, it's greater than. It not equals to, but it's greater than, right? A is not equals to B. True. Okay, so this way we will be solving logical operators. Boolean operators. Boolean operators are logical operators that can be used to compare two or more values and return a Boolean value. True or false. Based on the comparison, there are three you need to know: and, or not. We have already talked about these operators in our chapter number 7, and we talk about some gates. It's exactly the same. And will return true if both conditions are true, or will return true if one or both conditions are true. Not will return the opposite of the condition. So in this slide, I have given you an example of Boolean operators like um, on the left side. In pseudocode example, there is I have used one if condition 1 and condition 2. This piece of code will be executed if both condition will be true. On the other hand, in this if condition, I have used condition 1 or condition 2. So if any of this one condition will be true, this piece of code will be executed. And if not condition, it means whatever the condition is, if it's true, then we will be this condition will be executed if the condition is false, right? So I hope it's clear to you. Next, it comes the nested statements. No, so nested statement involves including one statement within another statement. This can be done with both selection, if else, and iteration, for, while, and do while loops as well. In programming languages like Python, Java, VB, nested statements are often indicated by indenting the inner statement relative to the outer statement. Nested selection is an if statement inside an if statement. And if the first if statement is true, it will run the if statement which is nested inside. Otherwise, it will skip to the else if or else which is part of that if. As you can see in this code, if A is greater than B, if that condition will be true, then we will go inside of this condition and then we will check if B is greater than C. If the outer condition, if A is greater than B is false, then we will skip these two conditions and we will directly move to the else part of this statement, like this statement, right? And then we will be executing else part, and inside the if statement, if condition will be true, like if A is greater than C, then we will be executing this statement, otherwise we will be executing the else part. So this is the concept of nested selection. If the outer condition is false, we will not go inside of the if condition. Nested iteration refers to a loop inside another loop, right? As you can see in this statement, for 1 to 10, it means outer loop will run from 1 to 10, and inside in the inner loop will run for j 1 to 5. So inner loop will run every time the outer loop will run to the multiple of 5 times, right? So once I is equals to 1, the outer loop will go inside and we will run 5 times the inner loop. After running the 5 time inner loop, then we will increment I equals to 2, and again we will run inner loop 5 times. Procedures and functions. It's a very important concept that what are the procedures and functions. So why it's always a good practice to make functions, and how it's going to actually maximize our productivity and minimize the work. Subroutines. Procedures and functions are types of subroutines. They are sequence of instructions that perform a specific task or a set of tasks. Subroutines are often used to simplify a program by breaking it into smaller, more manageable parts. They can be used to avoid duplicating code and can be reused throughout a program. It will improve the readability and maintainability of a code. It performs calculation to retrieve data or to make decisions based on input. So subroutines, basically there are two types of subroutines: functions and procedures. Right? Both will help us to manage our code. It will improve readability. It will avoid duplication of code. Parameters are values that are passed into a subroutine. They can be used to customize the behavior of a subroutine. Be of different types have a default value which are used if no value is passed in. Be passed by a value or by reference. When a parameter is passed by value, a copy of a parameter is made and used within the subroutine. When a parameter is passed by reference, the original parameter is used within the subroutine and any change made to the parameter will be reflected outside the subroutine. Subroutines can have multiple parameters. Parameters are basically the values that will be passed into, right? So there is a difference between, as we have already talked about, there are two types of subroutines and procedures and functions. So there is only one difference between functions and procedure is that functions will return a value whereas procedures doesn't return any value. But both can accept arguments or parameters, but procedures will never return value and functions will return a value. Defining and calling a subroutine. A subroutine only needs to be defined once to set it up. After this, you can call it as many times as you need to use it. It's just like that we learn the use of length function, subroutine, substring, lower, upper. These are basically different subroutines, right? So we have already the programmers have already developed the subroutines. Now we are just using those codes. So whenever you will make your own subroutines or maybe the functions or maybe the procedures, so for later on you will be just calling those subroutines or functions. You will not defining those subroutines again and again. Procedures. Procedures are defined using the procedure keyword in pseudocode, def keyword in Python, and sub keyword in VB and Java. Procedures can be called from other parts of the program using, as you can see, procedure, then it's the name of the procedure, calculate area, and inside this its parameters, right? The first parameter is integer type and the second parameter is also integer type. And inside this procedure, we are multiplying, we are finding the area and we are displaying the area on the screen and then end procedure. To call the procedure, you would use the following pseudocode. We will just write down the name of that procedure. As you can see, exactly the same name we have already specified in while declaring our procedure, and we will be just calling the procedure, right? And as you can see, this procedure is accepting two values, length and width, so we need to pass two values. These things are called parameters, right? Functions are defined using the function keyword in pseudocode, def keyword in Python, and function keyword in VB and Java. Function will return a value using the return keyword in pseudocode, return statement in Python, and function name in VB and Java. Functions can be called from other parts of the program using their name, and their return value can be stored in a variable. As you can see, in the procedure, in the functions, we will be specifying function again, but here we are returning some value. As you can see over here, this is the difference between procedure and function, right? You can use procedure and you can write down the function over here as well, but in function we are returning value, right? And this value will be directly displayed in this output code, right? Local and global value. This is the most important concept here. A local value variable is a variable that is declared inside a subroutine or a function or a parameter and can only be accessed from within that subroutine. A global variable is a variable that is declared outside of a subroutine and can be accessed from anywhere in the program. It's just like that when we are just ordering something from abroad and from China or Japan or Korea. But our local products we can access from here as well, but we cannot access from abroad, right? So global variables can be used to pass data between different subroutines. Overuse of global variables can make a different program difficult to understand and a debug and is therefore discouraged as it's considered bad practice. As you can see over here, global variable, this is my global variable, and this global variable can be accessed anywhere inside the program, but the variables which is average I have created inside this function. So when this function will be closed after this return statement, this average function will be destroyed. So we will not be able to access this average over here again. Library routines. Library or routines are pre-written code that can be used in program to specify to perform specific tasks. Using library routines save times by not having to write code from scratch. Library routines are also tested and proven to work, so errors are less likely. Some commonly used library routines include input output routines, math routines. Libraries can be included in programs by importing them. The specific syntax for importing a library may vary depending on the programming language being used. It's important to check the documentation for a library to understand its usage and available functions. It's just like that we have libraries, and inside these libraries, there are a lot of functions or there are a lot of books, and we can access those books depending upon our need. So same things will happen in our code as well. We will be having some predefined libraries, routines or functions. We will be calling and we will be using those functions according to our need. The most important library routine is math routine. And through this math routine, we will be using mod and div function. We have already talked about what is mod and div. Here I'm just quickly going to give you the recap. Mod is a function that returns the remainder when one number is divided by another one. In pseudocode, we will write down x mod y. In Python, we will be using percentage sign. Java, we are again using percentage sign. And in VB, we are using mod. Div is a function that returns the quotient when one number is divided by another number, right? So in pseudocode, we will write down x div y. In Python, we will be using double slash, and in Java, we will be using single slash, forward slash, and in VB, we will be using single backslash. Round function and a random function. Round function is a function that rounds a number to a specific number of decimal places. In pseudocode, round x, let's say if x is any variable and n is going to specify number of times we have to round this number. And in Python, we will be using round function like this, round x n. And in Java, we will be using math.round. And in VB, it's also given. Random, a function that generates a random number between x and n. So any range will be given to the system or this function, like x will be starting range and n is going to be the ending range, and this random function will be generated will generate the any random number between this range. In Python we use random dot rand int, and in Java we use rand dot next int, and in VB we use rand dot next. So it's just not about developing a program or making a program. Maintaining a program is also very important, as we have discussed the 4 or 5 stages in our chapter number 7. The first stage was design, then analysis, then coding, and then testing. So maintaining program is also very important. In fact, it is the most important part in our programming journey to maintain. For maintaining a program, you need to learn that why is it important to create a maintainable programs, right? So first of all, it will improve the program quality, and it reduces development time and cost, and it also enable collaboration as well. A maintainable program is easier to understand and modify, which leads to fewer bugs and better program quality. It reduces development time and cost, because if the maintainable program requires less time and efforts to modify, which will automatically reduces development time and cost. How it's going to enable collaboration? It will makes easier for multiple developers to work together on the same projects, and it is easier to understand and modify. It will improve lifespan. It will likely to be updated and maintained over time, which increases its lifetime and usefulness. And a well-maintained program will be adapt to changing requirement. Let's say in future, if there is any more requirement and if there is any changing in the requirement, so then it will be easy to modify it to the adapt to changing the requirement or a new feature. So the next question is, how do you create a well-maintained program? So the answer is very simple. Use meaningful identifier and use the commenting features. You can use write down the simple code, and identifiers are basically name given to a variable, constant, arrays, procedures, and functions. You can use commenting as well. You use descriptive and meaningful identifier to make your code easier to understand and maintain. Avoid using single letter or abbreviation that may not be clear to the others. Second thing is, use the commenting features provided by the programming language. So the comments are used to add description to the code that will help readers what the code is doing. Use comments to explain the purpose of variables, constant, procedures, functions, and any other part of the code that may not be immediately clear. Use comments to document any assumptions or limitation of the code. Use commenting of syntax to describe complex algorithm or to provide additional information on the purpose or behavior of a code. Use procedures and functions. Procedures and functions are basically reusable block of code that perform specific tasks. Use procedures and function will allow you to modularize your code and make it easier to understand, debug, and maintain. It will also make you it will you should also have descriptive names that clearly indicates what they do. Relevant and appropriate commenting of syntax. Commenting of syntax is used to explain the purpose of individual lines or block of code within the program. Next concept is arrays. Arrays are basically data structure. It is used to store multiple values, or you can say the multiple values of same data type or different. There are two types of arrays, 1D and 2D array. By the way, we have multi-dimensional array, but in this chapter, we will be talking about 1D and 2D array. A one-dimensional array is a collection of items of the same data type. To access elements in a 1D array, use the index which can start at 0 or 1. In pseudocode, we'll declare an array like declare array name. N is the size of an array of data type, right? In Python, we will be using to declare an array name equals to 0 multiplied by n. We will be using this square brackets, to specify the size of an array. A 2D array or a two-dimensional array is an array creating a grid-like structure. To access elements in 2D array, you will be using two indices, the row index and the column index. The syntax for accessing element is similar across languages, using square brackets. This for 1D array, single, and for 2D array, we will be using square brackets. Procedures to declare an array is very simple. We will be using declare keyword, array name, one square brackets in which we will be specifying rows, and in the second uh, mm, uh, square brackets we will be specifying the number of columns. Using arrays. Arrays are used to store and manage multiple values of the same data type efficiently. They can be used for tasks such as storing student scores, calculating averages, and managing inventory data. Using variables in array. Variables can be used as indexes in arrays to access and modify elements by repeatedly checking every element. This is useful when iterating through the array, using loops or performing calculation based on user input. So in this array, use of loops are mandatory. Without you loops, we will be it's actually very difficult to manage our arrays, right? So that's why we learned the loop concepts earlier before the learning the. What is the first index? The most important question. The first index of an array will always be start either from 0 or 1, depending upon the programming language and personal preferences as well. But most of the times in most of the languages such as Python, Java, VB uses 0 as a first index. So here I have declared an array score 5 of integer and I have used loop from 1 to 5, 0 to 4, and I'll be taking input as a from the user, and I'll be storing that value inside this array. So in this type of question, they are going to ask in your exam that declare an array to store customer's name, and customer name 1 till 30. Declare the array to store each customer's date of birth, telephone number, email address, and balances. Take a moment and try to answer the second question because I have already told you the first one. They asked me to write down this array, declare an array to store customer's name. So I have used the identifier name is meaningful, customer's names, and starting index from 1 till 30. Okay, so in this way, I can store the date of birth, telephone numbers, email, and balances of the same array. DOB is actually telling me date of birth, tel number, telephone, and email, balance, etc. Using iteration, loops can be used to write value into an array, iterating through each element and assigning a value. Iteration can also be used to read values from array, traversing through each element and performing operation or outputting the value. Nested iteration is useful for working with multi-dimensional array, such as 2D array, where you need to iterate through rows and columns. As you can see from this piece of code or example, here I have specified 2D array of scores 3, 3, and I have used nested loop to write down to take input from the user from the store value inside an array, and then I am using two nest loops to display scores on my screen. So write the pseudocode to output the content of the array, balance, and email along with suitable message. We just have to display the output on the screen from balance and email array. So it's pretty obvious that we will be using repeat loop, any loop. It's up to you if you want to take repeat loop, if you want to use for loop, it's up to you, but you can just display the messages like this. Next is comes the file handling. You know that when you are working on the system, it's very important to create a file. So when you are making a file, then definitely you are going to manage it. Yeah, you will be storing something inside the file, and then you are going to keep updating those files. So in this lesson, we will be learning about how to file. So why use files? The first question is that why use files? Files actually provides a way to store data permanently, it allowing the programs to access and manipulate it later. Files allows for organized storage of data, making it easier to find, access, and update. They enable sharing of data between different programs and users. They support data backup, ensuring data is not lost when a program or a computer system shuts down. They allow for large amount of data to be stored and managed efficiently. Data can be transported from one system to another. These are all the advantages of using files. How we can open a file and close a file. So common file operations include opening, reading, writing, appending, and closing. Opening will basically create a connection between the file and the program. Reading will retrieve data from a file. Writing will save new data to a file or overwriting existing content. Appending will add new data to the end of file without overwriting existing data. Closing will end the connection between the file and the program and releasing system resources. Single item of data can be numbers, characters, or other simple data types. A line of text typically ends with a new line character on an or an end of line marker. So this is the pseudocode how we can handle a file. First, we will be opening a file. Open file name, and here I have declare any variable. In this, I am going to read some data from that file, and then print file data and close file. Whatever this file is, I am going to close it. Open again, I am going to open a file, and then I'm going to write down data inside this file, right? And then I'm going to close the file. It's very simple. You just have to open, read, print, close, open, write, close. That's it. Don't forget that whenever you need to use a file, first you have to open it, then you have to do your task, either it's reading, writing, and then you have to close your file. That's all from the programming chapter. Please don't try to be go into the depth of file handling and arrays and all those different standard functions, because there are a lot of things to learn. But if you will just focusing on yourself to this to get a higher score in your CIEs, so it's better if you will be focusing on more on the focus on quality rather than the quality. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching the video. See you in the next video. If you like my video, please give me thumbs up and do share it with your friends so that it will help me to get to know that you are liking my content, and it will boost my confidence. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.